Listeners, you made it, or maybe this is your first time, but welcome back to Destination Aviation, your source for all things aviation, as I always say. Coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. I think I had mentioned in the last episode that I was coming out here for the National Business Aviation Association's base, big, giant, everything that you could encompass in aviation world. I think they have over like 20,000 people. I'm staying at the Encore, and when I checked in, obviously they saw my age and they said, "Do you want the quiet side of the hotel?" And I said, "I would love the quiet side of the hotel." So I have a nice view of the mountain ranges, but I also have an amazing view right at the convention center, so I can see it, understand it, know when I have to get over there. And I'm going to be recording this episode throughout the week, so I'll probably jump around on where I'm at with certain things within the conference. Who knows? But at least when we're following up with that, just so you know. So it's a process to record. It takes time, it takes equipment, it takes all sorts of things. And it takes research too. I wish I knew everything, but I don't. But so far it's been really fun. I got ahead of time to make sure everything is here set up, a lot of logistics, a lot of people moving. So here for the day job. But also, too, I have so many people reaching out to me and talking to me about the podcast, either wanting to be guests or just listeners. I always carry my stack of stickers with me, which the other day, someone who generally sounds like insults towards me. Usually, when they talk to me about the podcast, it's usually around the thought process of, "Oh, well, it works for you because of the way you look and it's realistic. I think people will listen to the podcast because they can relate to how, ugly you are." Anyways, that person said that their wife said my sticker's cute. And you know what? I'm going to take cute or adorable or whatever you would say to a cartoon figure of me that is somewhat, I don't know, nice. No, a person means well. They do. And I do love good ribbing because it's needed. It's needed when you are putting yourself out there. And I always love to get those kind of comments. And I'm sure I will. There are some people at this conference that were like, "I listened to your podcast," and guess what? Speaking of which, I do. So we did the Alaska episode, and a couple of things. I had someone from Alaska reach out and say very nicely, I pronounced Seward wrong. It's Seward. And they had said that pretty close to after the episode came out, which I apologize. Seward is the correct way to say that town. But a friend of mine that works at another airport who was on the podcast, she reached out to me or in a text message and said, "Oh, I didn't know that's how it's pronounced." And I said, "Oh no, you are correct. It is Seward." As a matter of fact, someone from Alaska corrected me. I always try to get the names exactly right, but especially on that episode, I think I gave out some warnings that I may have mumbled a bit, and that was one of them. So apologize to anybody in Alaska from the lower 48 states for my mispronunciation of one of your more beautiful towns, or they're all beautiful, but that was a special drive. Nice down there. We talked a lot in that episode. It's funny. That road, I drove back in the night on that road, and it's very dark, very desolate. And there's a lot of, I guess, head-on accidents on that. And when I was taking my Lyft ride a few days later in Anchorage itself, I think it was to the airport or somewhere. But the driver was like, "Oh yeah, I race cars. I go up and down there all the time. I hit 140 miles an hour there last Friday." Just thinking to myself, "Okay, so you're the problem on that road." But yeah, so one, I love that people are getting invested into the episodes. Every episode, every day, we grow more listeners. So thank you so much to all of you for tuning back in, listening to what we have to say. So far here in Vegas, things have been great. I got to actually go see Jerry Seinfeld, which, kind of, I guess, more my generation coming up through that. My parents watched it. I watched it. And so I had heard, I was probably about 10 years ago, I was dating someone and they went and saw Jerry Seinfeld do stand up and they said it was horrible. They didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. And so I didn't know what to expect, but it was really funny. Wasn't political. it was a lot. If you like Seinfeld and if you like the episode with Kevin Spitz on this, and we reference a lot of Seinfeld, I think you would like going to his stand up. He did a lot of really, funny humor that's probably more his style, but just updated. But a lot of people were laughing, a lot of people were having fun. And it was good. It was enjoyable. So, and I got to go with a good friend of mine, also a pilot, also has been on the show. And they always have amazing stories. They were doing some flying. I talked a little bit about my time in Colorado and how hard it was for me to breathe up at 10,000 feet and, sucking on a can of oxygen. I think if you go back and remember that episode where I was discussing a little bit about my time in Colorado, you probably will remember that as Jeff was wheezing as 10-year-olds blew past him on trails uh, up and down the Breckenridge area. But this person, they flew in. So it was a really cool story. They went into Denver. They got hooked up with a instructional pilot that does mountain flying. They went up to Aspen, and then they wanted to go to the world's highest airport, which I didn't know until they told me this, in the United States, I should say. I put that caveat. The world's highest airport in the United States, at 9,078 feet above sea level, is the Telluride Regional Airport. And they're just going through some of the mechanics of having their oxygen mask on. They fly in a Mooney. And then, your traffic pattern altitude, right? You're above 10,000 feet now, coming into the Telluride Airport. And, some of the instructions from the mountain pilot was, don't take your mask off. You don't want to be distracted when you're in the pattern. And it makes a lot of sense. Again, I think I mentioned back in my episode that if I were ever to go up into the mountain range, I definitely would go with an instructor and someone who knew the area. But it's funny because the person that I was with, they're like, well, you would never take a 172 up there. And I was like, you're right. I would not do that. I saw a video on TikTok, and it was like a Cessna 150. And it was, I think the caption was climbing to 10,500 feet. And the whole time they kept showing, the altitude and it going, it was a funny video. It was good. I enjoyed it. And speaking of which, if you get on TikTok, you'll see how long my new Samsonite luggage lasted with United Airlines. I think this was my fourth trip into that bag, and the top handle ripped completely off of it. So Samsonite, I was way off. I don't blame the baggage handlers. If you're grabbing thousands of bags in a day, you're just going to throw it as hard as you can. I get that. I blame Samsonite for the fact that their bag didn't last longer than 4 trips out the door. But you hear that all the time now. And I hate to be one of those older people now that say, hey, make it as good as they used to when I was young. But, quite honestly, there's something to be said to that. I mean, you can't even get out the door for 4 days. Anyways, the video's on TikTok. Go find us on TikTok. It's on our website, DA Podcast. I think it's DA Podcast 85. The handles are all on there. So if you just go to our website, www.destinationaviation.org, you can click on the link on there and find our TikTok, or go search it however you like to search for your favorite TikTok people channels, whatever the kids are calling it these days. I don't know. Like I said, I'm staying at the Encore, which is attached to the Wynn, and it is college week here. So I've had a share of a lot of kids. I should say kids, young adults. I've had a share of young adults for the last few days roaming the streets of Las Vegas. But they look like they're having fun, mostly having fun, and hopefully being safe on top of that. That's probably questionable from some of the stuff that I saw just walking down the streets, but let's hope everybody's being safe. Let's say that. But it's always fun to come out here to NBAA. It's an opportunity to really get to talk with our friends, really cool things going on, like Boom, Sonic Plane, anything that's really cutting edge is here. EV tolls, obviously, anything that's coming up the pike that our people are excited about, and also just our friends in the industry, and getting over to Henderson Field and seeing all the cool aircraft, people from AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, they're out here. So everybody that's involved in aviation. So I always love getting some time to sit down and really talk with folks and go over things. And then today I get to talk with, well, maybe at least hear from Chairman Sam Graves. He's of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee within the House, was responsible for the first GA entitlement and FAA reauthorization. Big supporter of general aviation. He actually is a pilot himself, and his hometown airport is the Gold Peterson Municipal Airport in Tarkio, Missouri. And I did look that up after our Seward butchering. And I gotta, just to make sure, I don't want to upset anybody in Tarkio at all. It looks like a lovely town from what I can see through the chart sectional, which is a chunk of yellow next to the airport. But no, he seems like a big supporter of aviation, which is great, especially general aviation, getting young people involved into it, next generation, all the really good stuff. So really glad for everything that he does. Looking forward to hearing him speak. And so again, it gives an opportunity to really get involved with some of the decision makers, Jeff, decision makers. Get involved with some of the decision makers within our industry, which is really cool. So I say thank you to NBAA for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of the group, to at least say hello and thank you for what Chairman Graves does for our industry. But I figured today, it's just me. I've been working on a interview. There's been an interview that has been in the works for about 3 to 4 months, and I will be the first to admit I had a conflict that popped up on the first time we were supposed to sit down, and then we rescheduled, and I think we're on a third, or I forget where we're at now on a rescheduling. But we were supposed to have an episode where we were going to sit down with someone who's very influential in the industry, doing some really good things, and their organization's doing some really good things. I'll wait till the day to potentially when they're on the show. But it's just scheduling. They got a lot of really important stuff that they're doing, so it's hard to nail down a time. As we get closer to it, usually we have to adjust and shift and change. So this week you get Jeff Miller. It's a Jeff Miller episode, and you know what, though? A lot of people seem to like it when we're just talking about something interesting, a story, whatever it might be, or just my travelings and my suitcases falling apart on these trips. Ironically, it's got a lot of views on TikTok. I don't know. I guess people like ripped up suitcases. But anyways, so I thought what we would discuss today is a very hot topic within our industry. People that listen to this channel know my day job. I'm the executive director of the Chicago Executive Airport, and we're turning 100 years old in 2026. My alma mater, Embry-Riddle, which is one. I went to a community college as well in Michigan, and I love that. West Shore Community College, shout out to them. But I did transfer credits into Embry-Riddle from that. But people ask me all the time, and I loved the experience I had at community college. I really did. Comparative to university, I loved the atmosphere at Embry-Riddle and the passion and everybody that loves the industry over there. But shout out to the community college, because so often people brush over if they do attend one or whatever it might be. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time. Anyways, what I was really getting at, and I digress, as you can see, my mind is skipping all over the place as I talk to you as the sun comes up here over Las Vegas. But with my alma mater, I noticed as well this upcoming year in 2026, they also will be turning 100 years old. And so I started thinking about, if you think some of the episodes that we've had on here, the Kelly's Airmail Act, which really spurred a lot of new airports to come online in the 1920s. We're going to see a slew of airports coming online. I'll say Chicago Executive Airport is the first to turn 100 in the Chicagoland region. So we have that. However, there's always been this consternation or opinions about what is the oldest airport in the United States. And everybody kind of grabs a little claim to it. So it can be a bit controversial if you're a nerd and you like aviation and airports. And I've heard people get into arguments over what is the oldest airport in the United States. So we're going to get into some of the background of what is the oldest airport? When we're talking tradition and history here, let's just maybe we'll find to a conclusion ourselves, or at least present the facts as they are for what is the oldest airport in the United States. So if you ever find yourself at a bar where there's a conference with aviation people at it, especially airport people, a lot of times you'll hear the argument of what is the oldest. And everybody always wants to stake a claim to that they're the oldest airport. I remember when I worked in Laredo, Texas, San Antonio was north of us. Obviously, we were down on the border. But the San Antonio airport within their system has the Stimson Airport. And I remember when I was there many, many moons ago for one of my very first conferences. This was even before I worked at Laredo. I was actually working out in California at the time. I was fortunate enough to travel there for a conference. They made the claim of the oldest airport in the country. And then somebody at the time said, no, it's not. And then from ever since then, it continued moving forward. And some of this argument happened at the Manger Hotel, which is a very historic hotel in downtown San Antonio. I was, pretty new into my real job in the industry. So by the time I got the approval to go to this conference, I was way late, didn't get to stay at the conference hotel, got to stay at the Manger, which has a long history itself. It opened in 1859, way before anybody thought of these flying contraptions. And, Teddy Roosevelt organized the Rough Riders and the bar at the Manger, really historic bar. My room had a little note next to the phone that said something like, these are the 13 known ghosts in your room. It's like, okay, thank you. Good night, I guess. Is this like Motel 6? Can we leave the light on? But yeah, there's that. And then there was also, I felt like such a fat ass because, obviously people back then were smaller, just everywhere, less, everywhere by width and height, everywhere in that sense. But you open the door, and the door almost hits the end of the bed. But it was cool in its own way. But that was where some of this argument started in the bar where Teddy Roosevelt was doing his thing. People were talking about the Stimson Airport, and oh my God, no, that's not the oldest airport in the country. Blah 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 blah, all this stuff. Which at the time I'm just more listening than anything else. I wasn't going to get into a bar brawl with these folks over it because I wasn't even really part of the conversation. I was just a fly on the wall to what they were discussing. So the Stimson Municipal Airport opened its doors in 1915 by the Stimson family. In 1918, it became the civil airport for San Antonio, World War I. A lot of the usual story of what's happening in airports back then, training grounds, aircraft are becoming a machine of war. And so you kind of see this story repeat itself. So the claim here is that the Stimson Airport is the oldest general aviation airport in Texas, and their claim the second oldest airport in the United States. So at the time, it's possible that somebody said the oldest airport, but left out the Texas part. I mean, history will write itself over that. That's a conversation at that time, but I hear it often. And I think one example of my personal experience with people arguing about the oldest airport, and quite honestly, that was the first time that I had even heard of people arguing about it. And I was like, well, because, you think about it. It's like, well, it seems pretty simple. That's the oldest, right? Okay, Jeff, that is the oldest. It's like if you pointed to, I don't know, let's just pick some people in Jeff's head. Let's see. You have David Letterman, Bill Maher, Jerry Seinfeld, let's throw him in there, and Dick Van Dyke. And I said, which one's the oldest? Dick Van Dyke is. It seems simple. It seems easy, right? But it's not. It's not simple. We're going to get into why it's not simple and why people get passionate over what is the oldest. So to get into the psyche of a aviation enthusiast, especially when it comes to the airport side, there are many of my friends, which me too, I love airplanes and I'm an airplane geek. There's also another special breed within this industry that also truly love airports and are very interested in airports. And they don't always go hand in hand. Some people focus on one aspect of it. And then you get the unique person that is eclectic, which is kind of like this podcast, right? It could be about anything in aviation. I did have somebody reach out to me the other day and they said, I have a great person for your show, and they're in the medical field and they're coming up with AI medical driven technology. And so I emailed them back, said, that sounds really cool and awesome. What does it have to do with aviation? It's like, I love what you're saying. I just don't know if the listeners would want to know. Are you doing medical flights? Let me tie something in there. But okay, let me get back from that to a special breed of I love everything aviation, just like this show. So what does this debate hinge on? And what to count and what is continuous? Now, that's an important word. If you were in my community college class, I would stop my floor right now and say, continuous. Remember that for the test. It could be on there. It could rear its head. So to decide which is the oldest, there are several complicating factors into this that the debate ensues into hours and everybody's opinion. And even with our airport turning 100 years old in the Chicagoland region, I said, so we had a historian talking with us about it. And they said, well, you're going to be the first to turn 100. And I was like, oh, so I could say we're the first airport, or I could say we are the oldest airport in the Chicagoland region. That was the statement. And the historian said, no, you can't say that. Said, well, why not? Who else is turning 100? Well, nobody, but you can't say it. You know, you can't really verify it. Like, okay, so what I've been saying then is, well, we're the first airport in the Chicagoland region to turn 100. And where things start getting a little bit murky in this is the Lansing Airport outside of Chicago. They are turning 100, but their hangar is turning 100. So Henry Ford had built a hangar at the airport for mass production. The hangar is turning 100, but the airport didn't technically actually start construction. And it was after 1926, and even the hangar itself was starting construction after Chicago Executive Airport was being established at the time, which I would add in another little nugget of history here, because quite often in my industry, people come up to me and they say, it's not Chicago Executive Airport, it's Pewaukee. And I'm really actually fine with that. Sometimes it irks me if it's a professional. I had somebody the other day, I won't name the engineering firm. I might have been in a little bit of a bitchy mood towards them, but they're like, Chicago Executive Airport, what is that? I don't know. Is that Pewaukee? It will always be Pewaukee to me. But I'm like, okay. I'm like, I get it, but you also are an engineering firm that you have your office is based in Chicago, and you can't remember the name. And then he looked at the shirt I was wearing, and he said, Chicago. That's such a hard name to remember. I'm like, Chicago is a hard name to remember. Gotcha. But I actually don't really care. But the interesting thing about it is that's not even the original name of the airfield. The original name of the airfield is Gauthier's Flying Field. So someday when somebody walks up to me and says that, then I'll know they're a true lover of history. You just say Pewaukee, that's the middle name. And I love Pewaukee. It's a good name. It is. And we still use it to this day as part of our tradition. And that's the idea, right? Don't lose your history. But again, back to this kind of, okay, continues, and you can't say it. Okay, Jeff, what's my thought then? Okay, we're the first airport to turn 100. Midway, DuPage airports, they're within the Chicagoland region. Obviously, Midway is downtown Chicago, original airport for the city. Turns 100 in 1927, the same with DuPage Airport. So what counts as aviation airport usage? You could actually trace back some elements of flying at our airport to 1925. And so that was part of the conversation, as well as, okay, when was it officially established? What we could see through the Cook County Registry, the history, when there were services offered, that all kind of came about in 1926. But there definitely were aircraft landing and taking off at Gauthier's Flying Field, or at least that area. Now, granted, this is 1926, and this part outside Chicago is all farmland, so there's not a lot out there at the time, which is normally what you see with airports, right? A lot of them were built out away from city centers, and then city centers moved around the airport. And so in this case, you had farm fields and stuff happening, but did it really constitute an airport? I don't know. So when we talk about what counts as aviation airport usage, do we count things like lighter than aircraft? So, dirigibles, balloons, is that a valid airport activity? Pearson Field claims a very early dirigible landed in 1905. Now, if that counts, its history is earlier than some of the airports that are claiming the top spot. But do we require fixed wing airplane operations? If yes, then College Park has a 1909 start, seems earlier than Pearson's first fixed wing in 1911. So College Park, Maryland, is the airport that claims to be the oldest in the United States. Now, that is the claim. I'm not disputing necessarily. We're just talking about facts and figures and what people are saying here. So College Park, let's talk a little bit about College Park because we're going to get into further on this. But College Park is located in Maryland. Their claim is established in August of 1909 by the United States Army and was to serve as a training location for Wilbur Wright to instruct two military officers to fly in the government's first airplane. Leased on August 25th, the first airplane, the Wright Type A biplane, was uncrated and assembled on October 7th. Civilian aircraft began flying from College Park Airport as early as December 1911, making it the world's oldest continuously operated airport. And so this continuously word pops up yet again. But if you go back to what we were just talking about, the definition of fixed wing aircraft, 1909, you may have an airport established, but is it truly an airport without fixed wing aircraft operating out of it, which would have been 1911? Again, peeling some of the layers of the onion here. The more you peel back, the more it stinks. No, this is all for fun. It is. I mean, I love that people get it so engrossed into this conversation. But so if you're saying that can an airport exist without airplanes? That's probably the question, right? Can a Buc-ee's exist without beaver nuts and shopping carts to put all of your stuffed beavers into 8 billion gas pumps? I don't know. Can it exist? Can a gas station exist without cars? It's kind of that argument. And so if that's not the thought, which they're you can understand some of the logic behind that. Are you truly an airport without that type of operation yet? So we had mentioned Pearson Field and the 1905 airships that they had running. Pearson Field is located in the state of Washington, Vancouver area. It is a city-owned municipal airport. Their claim is that it's the oldest continuously operating airfield in the Pacific Northwest and one of the two oldest continuously operating airfields in the United States. In 1905, the pilots of the Baldwin airship piloted the shores of Gills Lake in Portland, Oregon to Vancouver, a distance of approximately 8 miles, in the first aerial crossing of the Columbia River. Its endurance and flight record at the time was set. Obviously, there wasn't too much aircraft activity at the time, so easy to probably set a record. Carrying a letter to Theodore Hardy, an official of the fair in the Vancouver barracks. The flight also was recognized as the first time an airship was used to deliver a letter. And so back to where we talked about fixed-wing aircraft, and we were talking about College Park, in 1911, the first airplane, fixed-wing, lands at Pearson Field. Again, kind of establishing, if 1909 is College Park, 1905 you have an airship. Again, what really constitutes an airport, right? So you can see some of the argument here. So we've thrown around continuous operation. Let's talk a little bit about that is. So has the site, so the airport location, right, has it been used for flying of aircraft operations or air traffic continuously since its founding date? If there were gaps or periods with no flights that occurred, does this disqualify that airport from being an airport, right? So there you go. So for example, even though Pearson has been used since the early 1900s, some argue that airplane flights only started in 1911. So before that, it was not a continuous fixed wing aviation. Also, some claim that certain facilities might have closed for periods of time. So the definition of an airport, is it simply a piece of land used for takeoffs and landings? Does it require hangars, runways, infrastructure, ownership, or leasing, regular flights? It's easy in kind of today's world to understand, oh, this is an airport. This is what it's used for. With the invention of eVTOLs, is an eVTOL node in some community considered an airport? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe a heliport? Questions, right? So you can see how things are always evolving and changing a little bit, especially when you talk about the definition of an airport. Many early airfields were informal grass fields or leased land without much infrastructure. So whether something counts depends on how strict your definition is of an airport. If you listen to our Alaska episode, it was really cool to hear the Alaska State aviation officials talk about, creating runways really in the middle of nowhere and maintaining them. And then you had some of the flight operators saying, yearly some of these runways, either the snowplow drivers rip off the crown on them or they wash away. And so again, you start getting into what is an airport, what counts as an airport. And so again, the argument ensues over what is an airport. Municipal, commercial versus general use versus military. Some of the oldest claims are specific to certain types. The oldest municipal airport, the oldest commercial service airport, the oldest military aviation field, the oldest continuously used general aviation airport, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Depending on your qualifier that you add to the statement, the winner can be changed in all different directions. For example, Albany International Airport claims to be the oldest municipal airport in the United States under some definitions there, right? You're talking the oldest municipal airport. Looking around at their websites, I think that their claim to fame here is that they're municipality owned, operated, and they're continuously in that municipal realm rather than change in ownerships. Again, you can see how the waters here start to get a little bit murky when we start talking about what is the oldest airport. I myself have never been up to Albany. It's an interesting airport. They have an interesting governing structure there, but I guess it's working for them because it's been there long enough. And I say that because it's like they have a management group in there. There were some people that have come and gone out of that facility. So you see some of these airports that, and at least in my world, where you're, I don't know the best way to potentially describe it, but there's not often a lot of jobs there. So whether they're doing stuff internally or, again, I don't know. It's a unique spot, Albany, New York. But hey, what are you going to do? I have family from New York, so their claim to fame is municipality run, continuously, oldest, etc., etc. The mystery wrapped in it, an enigma of who is the oldest, continues. So we've talked a lot about what people go back and forth with and say, oh, what's the oldest? Most authoritative sources, so, the people in the know, to add some, kind of like when I say, the best aviation podcast ever. Well, what's that source from? It's me. So, of course, it makes sense, right? It stands forever. But the Guinness World Records, so, those people that do things like how many jelly beans in your mouth and whatnot, they list College Park Airport, 1909, as the oldest continuously operating airport in the world. The National Park Service and other historic aviation sources also accept College Park's claim for continuously operating since 1909. Pearson Field is recognized as one of the oldest, especially in the western U.S., and has an historic designation, but many sources concede that Pearson does not have precedence over College Park when it comes to fixed wing continuous operation starting date. So we talked about that a little bit earlier, but that's the caveat there. Other relative or relatives, yes, relatives, other relatives, other relevant candidates and claims. Huffman Prairie Flying Field in Ohio near Dayton. That was used by the Wright Brothers as a flight test after Kitty Hawk, sometimes cited in discussions about first airport type fields. But again, we go back to that continuous operation, which obviously that is not a candidate in continuously operating. I did look up on the map because I didn't know exactly where it was. And it goes back to an episode we had where we actually went over and visited the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the museum there. Huffman Prairie Flying Field is actually down that way. So the Dayton area of Ohio. So that's pretty cool. I didn't actually realize that when I was there in the area. When, like I said, go back to some of those episodes were really cool place. Whatever, some neat people, looked at some cool stuff. Great museum. It's free, little donation if you so choose to get in. I think they kind of want you to donate. So maybe not exactly free, but the idea is free. But why not help out? It's a cool museum with a lot of cool stuff. Another notable entry is near my home area. Kinloch Field down in the Lambert, St. Louis area. They had early aviation activity, balloon launches, early air meets, but the current airport infrastructure and continuous operations complicate the claim. Sometimes the original field has ceased to exist. And so, again, when you talking about the continuous side to it, I don't know. Now, I do know some people that work at the downtown St. Louis airport, and they're always making claims about things. They probably claim they're the oldest. I don't know. They always claim they're the busiest, and I often question that. So if they're listening, you can give me some crap. I actually just left them here in Las Vegas over at the NBAA-BACE Convention Center. They had a booth there. We have a booth. Our friendly rivalry, I think. But they did have a podcast sticker on their laptop. So shout out to Colin for doing that. No shout out to Sandy because I don't know where she put the sticker I gave her. But no, I digress. So anyways, my take and what seems to be the most defensible, since we're doing a podcast on this and everybody's probably going to ask, what is your opinion? Well, probably going to go with the masses here and say College Park Airport probably has the strongest claim to this. If you're lighter than air operations, which I was just talking to someone here, had dinner with them in their group last night in Las Vegas, you could have maybe looser definitions of what constitutes an airport. Pearson Field can claim precedence. The term airport is slippery for the 1900s and early 1900s, I should say. Many airports started as simple fields and later got more formalized, and continuous is a big qualifier as well, where we have periods of low or no activity. But I will say one thing over generally, and we're going to hit a lot of milestones here because of the Kelly's Airmail Act. In the 1920s, we saw a lot of airports start, including Chicago Executive Airport, Chicagoland's oldest airport. So we'll just celebrate everybody that's turning 100 because it's a big milestone. We're turning 100. Dick Van Dyke's turning 100. Why not celebrate aviation? So it's a great time. My alma mater, Embry-Riddle, is turning 100. I've asked them if they want to do something in conjunction with us. But, Embry-Riddle doesn't seem to want to muddy their brand ever. And so they'll keep on with their tradition of doing what Embry-Riddle does. But they did give me a very lovely alumni pin. So that was awfully nice of them to do that. And so a lot of nice people here that I would socialize with at their booth in Las Vegas. I did want to add one last thing in here because we had an episode on presidents and Air Force One and all that. And one of the things we mentioned in there was Theodore Roosevelt, first airplane flight for a U.S. president. That was Pearson Field in the St. Louis area, which is some of the significant firsts we talked about. And I also wanted to mention, too, that it is now a part of the St. Louis Lambert International Airport, as it's been kind of morphed into that. So that field closed in 1912, but its legacy lives on as the foundation of the St. Louis Lambert International Airport. Another first there was what is widely known as the first successful parachute jump in 1912 by Captain Albert Berry. So, a little side information as we're wrapping up the episode here. Just to finalize this episode, can anyone guess what the world's oldest airport is? Not just in America, but the world's oldest airport. I'll give you a second. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Okay, enough of that. Nobody wants to hear that. It's the same. College Airport in Maryland, or College Park Airport in Maryland. We can't accept College Airport. No, that is also considered the world's oldest airport, which makes sense, right? Flights started in the United States. So College Park Airport in Maryland. Maybe we'll put it on our list someday to go and visit. And that'd probably be pretty cool to see, if I say so myself. Alrighty, everybody. I think I have said enough that I wanted to say on this episode. I'm wrapping up my trip here. I'll be traveling back to the Chicago region tomorrow. It's been a week in Las Vegas. Been fun. It's also been long and always fun to meet up with people. I had so many people come up and tell me they're enjoying the podcast. So thank you so much to everybody that said that here. Gave out a ton of stickers. Had a ton of conversations about it. Had some really cool conversations about the biplane. Saw some really neat stuff. Got a chance to meet with Chairman Sam Graves. So thank you to everybody at the NBAA team, NATA, everybody that I met in the hallways. New people, new friends, new listeners. It was quite the ride here in Las Vegas. Quite a good time. But like I said, 7 days in Las Vegas, I've had enough. I'm ready to get home. I do have some other travel coming up. I'll be going to our friends up north in Canada for another conference, as fall season is busy time in aviation for conferences. Everybody wants to squeeze stuff in before we get to the holidays. But thank you so much for coming along on this, listening to me as I go through my process and talk about things that are interesting, I think, to all of us. If you have something that you would like to hear on the show, please send us a message at DAPodcast85@gmail.com. That is your source for, well, anything, really. Anything goes at DAPodcast85@gmail.com. Feel free to jump in. Send some suggestions over, thoughts, ideas. Thank you again to everybody for listening and commenting. It's always great to get some opportunities to talk with people, especially if they're enjoying the show, which, like I said, I'm coming off a week of hearing a lot of really good things about it. So thank you again to everyone. Thank you for coming with me to Las Vegas. We'll probably get back to regular scheduling program. Of course, or not. Maybe we'll do something in Canada. We'll do another international episode. We'll add one of those into our roster since we have that as a previous one down in St. Louis. St. Louis? St. Lucia. I think I have St. Louis on the mind because, one, they give me so much crap when I do see them. Good crap, though, about the show. I think they're just burrowed in my mind when I met with St. Lucia. But we'll add another one in with Canada when we head up that way. Potentially. We'll see. We'll see how the timeline works out. But thank you again to everybody. And until next time, my friends, we'll see you down the runway.